Most people believe that imagining and visualizing are the same thing, but this confusion is precisely what prevents real transformation of the mind and of life. Imagining is usually vague, scattered, without deep involvement. Visualization, on the other hand, is an active, precise, and measurable process in the brain. When you visualize correctly, you activate exactly the same brain areas that would be activated if you were living that experience in real life. This is not mysticism. It is applied neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and neuro-linguistic programming in action. Visualization is training, and like any training, it requires practice, method, and repetition. When you deliberately engage your senses, emotions, and attention, you strengthen specific neural connections. These connections begin to shape not only your inner perception, but also the way you act, decide, and respond to the world. Gradually, the brain starts to accept what is visualized as a possible, and in many cases, inevitable, scenario. That is why visualization is not just about thinking positive. It is about reprogramming the subconscious mind, which directs most of your daily behavior. This mental training can be applied both to personal development and to high-performance professional contexts. Focus, productivity, mental clarity, and strategic direction begin to reorganize when the mind learns how to visualize correctly. To make this practical and accessible, the training starts with simple, ordinary objects that you have around you right now. Nothing abstract, nothing distant. The first exercise is deliberately simple because it builds the foundation for everything that comes next. Place a cup or a glass on the table at a comfortable distance. Do not touch it yet. Just observe it. Observe as if it were the first time you have ever seen that object. Spend about 30 full seconds simply looking. Notice the exact color, the variations in tone, the way light reflects off its surface. Observe whether the surface is smooth or textured. Perceive the shape, the thickness, the edges. Imagine the weight it would have in your hand. Even imagine the sound it would make if it were gently slid across the table. As you observe, breathe slowly. With each inhale, fixate on a new detail. This process directly activates the visual cortex and sensory memory, two fundamental pillars of cognitive psychology and high-level mental training. This is not just observing for the sake of observing. It is teaching the brain to register with precision. Now, slowly close your eyes. Without rushing, recreate the object mentally with as much fidelity as possible. See the shape, the color, the texture. Feel the imagined weight. If possible, evoke the sound you noticed earlier. Sustain this image for as long as you can without it distorting or fading. At this moment, something important happens. The same neural networks that would be used to physically hold the object begin to activate. This strengthens neuroplasticity and refines your ability to create clear, stable mental images. The more you practice, the easier this becomes. Focus deepens, attention stabilizes, the mind begins to obey. This exercise, done 3 times a day, trains the foundation of conscious visualization. Over time, this skill naturally transfers to larger objectives, personal goals, professional projects, strategic decisions. The clearer the image, the more organized the behavior that emerges from it. Once this foundation is solid, it is possible to move on to something more challenging, visualization of movement. Here, the mind stops dealing only with static images and begins to sustain processes in action. Choose a clock with a second hand or a digital timer in motion. If there is sound, even better. Sit comfortably with your spine upright and your hands relaxed. Eliminate distractions. Bring your attention to the movement of the hand. Follow the rhythm with your eyes without moving your head. Observe the direction, the speed, the micro movements, the exact point where light reflects. Breathe naturally. Begin to synchronize your breathing with the movement. Inhale while counting 3 movements of the hand. Exhale for 3 more. This simple adjustment calms the attentional system and anchors the mind in the present. Now close your eyes. Bring the image of the moving hand into your mind. If there was sound, recreate it mentally. Sustain this internal movement for 20 to 30 seconds. Then begin to consciously alter the movement. Imagine the hand moving slower, then faster. Reverse the direction. This training develops the ability to maintain and manipulate dynamic images. While sustaining the movement, mentally project a real process in your life. A project, a habit, a personal transformation. Make this process advance at the rhythm of the hand. See clear stages. Feel progress. Open your eyes calmly. Mentally or in writing, register a word that represents the clarity of the image. Notice what improved compared to the previous practice. Short sessions of 3 to 5 minutes, done 2 or 3 times a day over 7 days, already produce noticeable changes in sustained attention and mental planning capacity. This type of visualization is essential for what is called strategic and quantum visualization, where the mind learns not only to see an outcome, but to sustain the path toward it. And when this base is firm, the next step is even deeper, involving emotion, memory, and identity. This is where visualization stops being just a mental exercise and becomes a real mechanism of inner transformation. When the mind has learned to sustain static images and movement with clarity, the next natural step is to activate what truly consolidates any internal change. Emotion. Emotion is not a secondary detail in this process. It is the link between the mental image and deep subconscious programming. Without emotion, visualization remains superficial. With emotion, it becomes experience. For this, the third exercise leads you to relive a real positive experience from your past. Not something imagined, but something you actually lived. This detail is important because the brain recognizes this memory as true, safe, and possible. It is from this base that new realities begin to be built. Find a quiet place. Sit or lie down comfortably. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. Allow the body to relax. Now choose a meaningful, positive experience from your life. It can be an achievement, a moment of gratitude, a special trip, or an inspiring conversation. It does not have to be something grand. It just needs to be real and meaningful to you. Begin reconstructing this experience sensorially. Visualize the environment. Observe the colors, shapes, and light. Then bring in the sounds of that moment. Voices, background noises, silence. Next, bring in bodily sensations. Your posture, the temperature, contact with surfaces. Every detail reinforces the vividness of the experience. Now comes the most important part, the emotion. Allow yourself to feel exactly what you felt in that moment. Joy, pride, gratitude, peace. Do not observe the emotion from a distance. Live it again. Let it expand through your body. A natural smile may arise. Allow it. At this point, something profound happens. From a neuroplasticity perspective, you are strengthening synaptic connections associated with positive emotional states. From the quantum perspective presented, this emotion elevates your vibration and adjusts your energetic field, aligning it with similar experiences. While feeling this emotion, internally acknowledge that you are attracting more experiences like this into your life, not as a request, but as a statement. This is part of my life. This exercise, practiced for about 5 minutes daily, reconfigures automatic emotional patterns and increases cognitive resilience. The subconscious begins to register this state as familiar. When positive emotions become familiar, the brain starts seeking situations that reinforce them. This changes choices, reactions, and perceived opportunities. Reality begins to respond. After the mind learns to sustain images, movement, and emotion, we reach a decisive point, a space where imagination and reality begin to blur. Here, visualization stops being just training and becomes a direct tool of conscious creation. The fourth exercise works exactly at this boundary. It involves visualizing a desired object with extreme specificity. Before starting, eliminate distractions. Sit comfortably. Establish a clear intention. Choose a single object. Be specific. Color, model, details. Take 3 deep breaths. Then formulate the intention silently or out loud, always in the present tense. I already have this. This phrasing is important because the subconscious does not operate well with distant futures. It responds to what is experienced as real now. Close your eyes and form the clearest possible image of the object. Observe the shape, color, size, shine, and reflections. Sustain each detail for a few seconds, then add touch. Feel the texture and weight. Next, add sounds associated with using the object. If there is a smell, include that as well. Now imagine yourself interacting with the object, picking it up, using it, placing it somewhere. Visualize concrete, natural movements. While doing this, bring in the emotion of gratitude and satisfaction. To reinforce it, use a simple physical anchor, such as pressing your thumb against your index finger or gently clenching your fist. This gesture creates a bodily association with the emotional state. Next, create a brief contrast. For a moment, imagine not having the object. Immediately return to the feeling of having it. This contrast intensifies the emotional signals sent to the subconscious. If what I'm saying makes sense to you, and you feel ready to deepen this experience, I've left a more complete material in the pinned comment. You don't need to look at it now. Just remember it when the time feels right. Before finishing, visualize a real, concrete action you can take in the next 24 to 48 hours to move closer to this goal, something simple and practical, like researching, organizing resources, or taking a first step. This creates the bridge between mind and action. Open your eyes. Mentally or in writing, register the level of clarity of the image and the action you will take. Rate the vividness from 1 to 10. If the image feels weak, return to focusing on a single sense until it strengthens again. This exercise, practiced daily for 21 to 30 days, trains focus, activates neuroplasticity, and programs the subconscious to work toward concrete objectives. Consistency is more important than occasional intensity. An image sustained with emotion and followed by action reorganizes behavior and perception of the environment. What remains in the mind with clarity, emotion, and repetition tends to materialize because it begins to guide decisions, habits, and perceived opportunities. This is not effort. It is alignment. And when this alignment begins to happen, something quietly transforms. Your mind stops reacting to the world and starts shaping how you move within it. After training static images, movement, and emotion, the mind begins to enter an advanced state of integration. At this point, the subconscious starts to accept new internal images, not as fantasy, but as coherent, possible experiences. This is where visualization stops being just a mental exercise and begins to directly influence behavior, focus, and decisions. The most important aspect of this process is understanding that the mind does not clearly differentiate between what is physically experienced and what is experienced with emotional and sensory intensity. When you sustain a clear image accompanied by genuine emotion, your brain activates the same neural circuits that would be activated if that experience were actually happening. This explains why conscious repetition is essential. Each time you practice, you strengthen these neural connections. Over time, the brain begins to consider this new state familiar, and anything that is familiar no longer generates internal resistance. At this stage, the subconscious automatically adjusts attitudes, choices, and patterns of attention. You begin to notice opportunities that previously went unnoticed, not because they suddenly appeared, but because your mind is now trained to recognize them. Another fundamental point is the emotional state during practice. Emotions such as gratitude, safety, and confidence significantly increase the effectiveness of the exercise. They elevate the internal state and create coherence between thought, emotion, and action. Consistency is the decisive factor. This is not about long sessions, but daily practice. A few minutes done with focus and presence are enough to generate progressive and lasting changes. When the conscious mind and subconscious begin to work together, effort decreases and results become more natural. Visualization stops being something you do and becomes an internal state from which you live. In the previous part, you understood that visualization works because it creates neural familiarity. Now the next step is to turn this familiarity into alignment with reality, and this happens when the mind enters a state of total coherence between image, emotion, and intention. This is the point where visualization stops being just internal training and begins to directly influence the field of action. The brain starts operating as if what you visualize is already in the process of happening. This changes posture, micro-decisions, and even how you respond to environmental stimuli. Here, a crucial element comes into play: clear intention. Visualizing without intention is like turning on a radio without choosing a station. When you precisely define what you want, not vaguely, but concretely, the subconscious receives a much stronger instruction. It understands what to seek, what to reinforce, and what to discard. Another key factor is involving the body. The mind learns faster when the body participates. Small physical gestures during visualization, such as pressing your fingers together, adjusting posture, or breathing rhythmically, create anchors that connect the mental state to the physical state. This accelerates the fixation of the new pattern. At this stage, it is also important to notice something. Effective visualization does not generate anxiety. If it creates tension, urgency, or fear of not happening, this indicates internal resistance. The goal is to reach a state of calm certainty, where the mental image is accompanied by a sense of naturalness. When this coherence occurs, the subconscious begins working silently. It reorganizes priorities, changes automatic patterns, and influences how you interpret the world. Situations that once felt confusing start to make sense. Paths become clearer. This process does not require excessive effort. On the contrary, the more you try to force the result, the less effective it becomes. Visualization works best when practiced with presence, consistency, and detachment from absolute control. From here, you are ready for the deepest level of the process, letting go, trusting, and allowing reality to respond to the new internal frequency you are emitting. Now we arrive at the most subtle and most powerful point of the entire process, the moment of letting go. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means stopping interference through anxiety, doubt, or the need for control. This is where most people fail, not because of lack of technique, but because of excess tension. When you visualize correctly, with sensory clarity, coherent emotion, and defined intention, the conscious work is done. Beyond this point, mental insistence can create noise. The brain interprets anxious repetition as a signal that the goal is still distant, which weakens the programming effect. The ideal state after visualization is one of confident normalcy. You do not need to think constantly about what you want. Instead, you begin to act like someone who is already naturally moving toward it. Your decisions become more aligned. Your reactions become calmer. Your behavior changes before the result even appears. This is a basic principle of behavioral neuroscience. The brain adjusts future actions based on recurring internal images. When this image is stable, the nervous system starts treating it as a reference. This alters habits, body language, tone of voice, and even how you perceive opportunities. From the perspective of physics applied to consciousness, sustained focus with emotion creates coherence. Coherence is order. And where there is order, there is less energy waste and greater efficiency. This is why aligned people seem to achieve results with less effort, not because they do less, but because they act with less internal resistance. It is essential to understand that visualization does not replace action. It qualifies action. It ensures that every step taken is in harmony with the objective, avoiding unconscious self-sabotage, contradictory impulses, and misaligned decisions. The ideal practice is simple and profound. Visualize with presence, feel with truth, close with gratitude, and go on with your day normally. No pressure, no constant monitoring, no cultivated doubt. Over time, you will notice something important. Your mind will become quieter, your focus sharper, and your capacity to respond much more precise. You will begin to notice connections, ideas, and opportunities that previously went unnoticed. Not because they appeared out of nowhere, but because you are now prepared to recognize them. This is the true effect of advanced mental training. It is not fantasy. It is neural adaptation, perceptual refinement, applied consciousness. Remember, every image sustained with genuine emotion becomes direction. Every direction maintained with consistency becomes movement. And every aligned movement tends, inevitably, to generate results. You are not just training the mind. You are teaching the brain to cooperate with the life you want to build. From now on, practice, not to prove anything, but because your mind was made to create. These exercises are not even the tip of the iceberg. In the pinned comment, there is a complete material aligned with prosperity and the realization of dreams, but it is not for everyone. It is intended only for those who want real results and are willing to follow the plans and exercises exactly as they were created. If you are part of this group, check the pinned comment. You've learned how visualization trains the mind and reorganizes the subconscious. But there's a deeper layer. If the mind influences reality, where does observation end and creation begin? In the next video, I explain what happens when the observer and the observed collapse into one, and why reality only changes after identity shifts, not effort. It's on your screen now. Watch it next.